Delighted to be your host. I've got with me in studio now from the Northern Ireland Fire Service, Newry Station Area Commander here, Rod O'Hare. How are you?
Not so bad, Ron, and yourself?
I'm great, thanks be to goodness. You've raced into us just straight hot foot from an incident.
Well, this is it, it keeps us busy sometimes.
Keeps you busy. Anything significant this morning
nothing
that we need
really,
to hear about?
Nothing really, no, in fairness, it wasn't an awful lot, but it's just one of these things, that's what we're there for.
Yep, be called to make sure that things are all right. You guys, if you're called upon, you're happy enough to go to the home of people and maybe an old person or someone who's in some doubt about things. If they ring you for advice, you'll give it to them.
In fairness, Ron, that's one of the angles that we're sort of trying to get the general public to take on board from us. We would much rather, as I've said to you previously here, prevent something happening rather than attend something which has happened. So we'd encourage people, particularly those people who are slightly more vulnerable or alone in their homes, to contact us, and we will come out and make a pre-arranged appointment to do a home fire safety check.
Yes.
And we'd also appeal to those people who have possibly vulnerable relatives, friends or neighbours to possibly consider discussing this with them and doing it on their behalf, because it's a free service. We'll come out and we'll talk through the general issues on fire safety, and where necessary we will fit free smoke alarms within the property to ensure the safety of the people there,
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And it's people can't ask for any more than that. I have a vision coming to me of an elderly person I saw quite recently, and in a bedroom, quite chocker block with everything under the sun, books, the bric-a-brac of family memorabilia, and then the plug at the side of the bed, and there's a bundle the size of two fists of plugs coming out of the one socket. That's a disaster waiting to happen.
Well, it really is, because when the old-fashioned, as we call them, are on double adapters.
Yes.
Which became much more than double adapters.
They did.
Were all that was really available to us. However, what I would suggest is if anybody's in that position or knows of anyone in that position, for a very minimal cost, you can buy a fused trailing lead.
Yeah.
One plug into the wall and then a bank of fused
That's right.
sockets.
You can have up to 12 of those.
You can.
And
to be fair, that's the way to go. It's designed for the purpose in hand, and it means should there be a problem with any of the appliances or the implements that are plugged into that system, it will actually fuse. There's a safety system built into it.
To make it happen.
Yeah.
One of the things I see less and less of nowadays, thanks be to goodness, it is the chip pan.
Yeah, topic of choice at the moment. And to be fair, I think it's a lot to do with the fact that people are so busy now, and it does take a bit of time to prepare and cut chips, and a lot of them are oven chips and things like this. And really, I'm not adverse to that. What I will say is there are some people out there who advocate the old chip pan simply because, in their opinion, they taste better. And whilst I'm not going to argue with every individual's taste, there would be a few caveats I would ask for when you're using the chip pan. Number one, don't leave it at any point unattended. You need to be very visual with it. Secondly, be careful. Oil and water do not mix. So if you do find that you would have an incident with a chip pan, please know the protocols of your damp cloth and smothering the fire and removing it where possible from the heat source, preferably by turning it off or clicking it off at the wall and not moving it.
No, because
that's an incident in itself.
Yeah.
So there are those general rules to consider. The big one for me would be, I would encourage people who have had a social engagement on a Friday or Saturday evening to call with some of the local hostelries on their way home.
And buy their chips.
And buy their chips and take them home, because that's something we wouldn't. No. That's when you encounter problems, because with the best will, people can come in with the intention of having a bite to eat, and then possibly due to their activities earlier on in the evening, find themselves asleep on the sofa. And then find myself or the guys waking them.
If they're lucky.
If they're lucky.
You see, I didn't believe that people still use chip pans.
Oh, they really do,
Really?
Yes, they really do. They're actually more common than you would think, because basically when you look at it, it's a basic implement. You have a pot. Whereas the chip pan that we would advocate would be your thermostatically controlled sealed lid unit.
I went into one of our fine shopping malls recently when I thought I'd like chips, and I bought one of these things for £20.
Yes,
And now
that's-
I can have chips to my heart's content and I won't burn to death.
The big issue about them is initially they possibly may have been much more expensive.
Ah, yes.
But to be fair, now they're within the realms and the range of everybody else. And you know, with things like that available, and with the general health drive that people are having, whereby they're not really cooking that class of type of food at home, and occasionally as they go for it, they go for a treat and they go to Friar Tuck's or to Pat's
whatever.
Carry Out. You know, that's the joy of it, and we would encourage them to continue to do that.
Do that and
Support
leave
their
the-
local businesses and leave the chip
Leave
pan
the
in
chip
the cupboard.
pan, or
Yeah.
take it when there's no oil in it,
Yeah.
and take it to the bin and get rid of it.
That's
and
the
that'd be
truth.
the end of
That's
it.
the truth.
Bin the chip pan. You heard it here this morning, because it is a dastardly bit of carry on altogether. Then you have the people who unfortunately still smoke, and smoking itself, if there's no fire, causes 50% of people who smoke to die. 1 in 2 die. You smoke, I don't smoke. You die, I don't die. That's the basic thing. But there are people who, in smoking, it's a combination of the activities of the evening. They fall asleep with the cigarettes there in the bed, or the cigarettes down the side of the settee, and away it goes again.
Well, in fairness, on the political correctness of smoking as a pastime, you know, I'll not pass any judgment, because you know, I think everybody's entitled to their own self-determination as long as it's not harming others, and so I'm not prepared to vilify smokers, as the legislation quite often can. I have inhaled quite a few mountains and different things in my time in the course of my job, so I've done quite a bit of smoking.
Yes, God knows.
But the thing
Yeah.
is, what I will say about it is, you need to be incredibly careful and considerate of others if you smoke within an environment that you share with other people. And we have moved away from things of quality to things of quantity. So, you know, the glass ashtray that we would always have counted on is no longer readily available. You have to seek it out. The metal bin that you used to tip it into no longer exists. We're much more eco-friendly now with our wheelie bins for different purposes, and they are made of a flammable substance. So what I would say to people is, within the house, not to smoke, of course. We wouldn't encourage anybody to smoke in the presence of youngsters, you know, for their health purposes, and they don't have the opportunity to make the choice. But what I would say is, where they do smoke, to make sure that they use the right receptacle at the end of their cigarette, that they actually put it out in something like a glass or metal ashtray, and that is left outside on a windowsill rather than taken outside and immediately tipped into the PVC bin.
Oh, goodness, yeah.
Or
Because we talked about that before.
Yes, and it does happen, and it is.
It was ashes that happened.
Yes, it does still actually continue to happen. And I don't think there's any malice in it. It's just people simply don't think.
Yes.
And it's those moments where judgment lapses, where people are in a hurry, that these mistakes tend to occur. And that's why we would encourage people to have routines, have their nighttime routine, so that they know what happens, and when the ashtray goes out, that's the end of the smoking. We definitely would encourage people not to smoke in their bedrooms.
Yeah, oh my God.
Or if they're lying up on the couches, because invariably, with the best will in the world, and with legislation passed to ensure the fabric fire resistance and the stuffing of furniture now meeting a prerequisite standard, some people may have older furniture.
Yes, of course.
Some people may have soft furnishings which don't meet the standards, and then all of a sudden you're into a very, very specific and nasty issue.
Absolutely. Rod, the risks are many that surround us in this way, and people are vulnerable all the time. But there's something that happened a lot once upon a time, and maybe it's still going on. It almost seemed the ubiquitous chimney fire. Do we still get them?
You know, we do. And I have to say, they're possibly, in these times of austerity, more common than they have been in quite some time. Because when oil was fueling our central heating boilers for a very reasonable cost, it wasn't really an issue. However, now we're finding, when things have got more expensive, that people are reverting back to the older, more traditional ways, and they're opening up and using their open fires again. Sometimes fires that haven't been used in quite some time. So the one piece of advice that I would give to your viewers, Rowan, would be, if you decide to use your fire, or if you're currently using your fire, hopefully we're coming to the point where we'll be coming away from
Oh,
it again.
the sap rising in the stick.
This is it.
It's
what
springtime.
Yes, I would advise people that on at least an annual basis they should have their chimneys swept
Yeah.
by a reputable practitioner, and I'm sure there are plenty of them that
Oh, yeah,
advertise locally.
absolutely.
And I would also suggest that the people are careful of the fuel that they use. Because, as you say, with the sap rising, you know, sticks that haven't been, timber that hasn't been seasoned tends
Yeah.
to leave a sap deposit on
Yo.
chimneys, which tends to lead to a more likely chimney fire.
My goodness.
We also have things that people have to hand that they're burning on a cost basis. And some of the things like these very popular wood burners now are sealed units.
Uh-huh.
So where people are using something that's using or burning a carbonaceous fuel, we would also encourage them to invest and do their homework on a carbon monoxide alarm and have it within the room
Are
for
they
their own protection.
complicated to use, those carbon monoxide alarms?
You know, in the end
you
of
have
the
to
day,
set them up and stuff.
once it comes to the actual mechanical operation of them and the chemical mechanisms within them, they're quite a complicated piece of kit to have in your hand. However, their fitment in the domestic realm is quite easy. It's guided by the manufacturers on the instructions within the product packaging on sale, and to be quite honest, it's a very worthwhile investment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very worthwhile investment.
Absolutely. Now, your men continue to respond, and it's a response based on the very best training known in the Western world for firefighters. It's just a year ago since Niall Hamilton died after a call-out. He was away, and was that in Enniskillen that happened?
It was actually, yes, Niall was from Enniskillen. You know, I had the privilege to serve with Niall in my days as a crew commander, Greenwatch Lurgan. Niall was there attached before he moved out to work with the road rescue team and develop an education programme and training programme for firefighters across the province
Yes.
on dealing with car accidents, RTCs, and in educating younger people as to the dangers of the roads. And the only way I can describe him is he was a gentleman. He really was a gentleman. There was always a smile on Niall's face. He was always a glow in the room. And irrespective of what the weather was or what the last incident was, Niall was always very positive and very, you know, one of those guys that you felt you could ask for anything. And you knew he would, if it was within his realms of
You'd get it.
capability, he would have dealt with it and done it for you. A gentleman, a true professional. But unfortunately, we lost Niall, as you say, just over 12 months ago. After a fire call, the primary incident had been closed down and it was the general make-up phase. And unfortunately, Niall took particularly unwell at the side of the road and passed away.
My goodness.
You know, there's neither rhyme nor reason to it,
No,
Rowan.
no.
The only thing I can say is, you know, he's still on our lips regularly.
Yeah,
And it brings a smile to my face every time I think of him.
I'm so
And,
glad we're mentioning him this morning.
and it's one of those things where it's very, very hard to describe. I suppose the best way to put it is the fire service is much more than a job. If I was to seek out an apt way of putting it, I would say it's probably more of a vocation.
Yeah.
So the people that you tend to come in contact with are much more than work acquaintances. There's more of an almost a family aspect to it, where we are dependent on each other for our own health and safety, and we rely on each other for our counselling after events and for just our camaraderie way of getting on with all the time we spend together. You
Put
know?
in another context, if you had been, and your men in Uri had been in downtown Manhattan on 9/11, you and your men would have been racing in while the others were racing out. There wouldn't have been a question about that.
No, and you know, it is one of those. It's one of those strange things that has been noted previously. You know, you're when you're approaching something of any notice, you're running against the tide because you're going one way and the general tide is going the other way, away from it. And look, to be quite honest, it's not maverick, it's not gung-ho, because fortunately the Fire and Rescue Service invest quite a lot of time and money in training us and in equipping us to do the job to the best of our ability. And to be frank, it's all based on very sound judgment and assessment of what's going on the fire ground on each incident, at each event, you know.
And of course, you know, it's not all chimney fires, chip pan fires, serious. There are times you go to places where there's an oil depot, or where there's a depot of gas tanks and stuff like that. That takes it to a different kind of community level.
Well, it does certainly, you know, and there are lots of things now. It's a much more modern world we live in. So things that may seem innocuous, like grassland fires in fields, without the appreciation of the fact that there's actually a mains gas pipe running through that field, which now affects it. When you're going to look at things up down Long Valley on your way up into the Mournes with wildland fires, and you have to take into consideration that there are historic boreholes that have to be bore in mind. So there are lots and lots of things. We have much more traffic on our roads carrying much more volatile products that are in demand, and we have much more storage, even down to the likes of the capacity within the farming community now to store their slurry to meet the legislative requirement of the calendar-driven spreading of that. You know, so all these things bring with them their own inherent risks. But thankfully, through our standard operation procedures and the training of the men, we try and keep abreast of everything, Ron.
Rod O'Hare, I thank you for coming in, and I thank you for being the people you are with the Northern Ireland Fire Service, Fire and Rescue Service. You're there for us, you're trained to be there for us, you constantly deliver, and we are exceedingly grateful. Thank you, Rod O'Hare.
Thanks very much, Ron. I'll pass your comments on to the
Do
guys.
please,
I
do
will
please.
indeed.
Thank you very much indeed.
So, you want local Newry and Mourne TV shows on